Welcome back, friends, to another episode of Lynch Paints, where today is a bit of a special episode. So a little while back I did a 7,000 follower giveaway over at my Instagram page at Lynch Paints, and one of the winners was Dusty Miniatures, and he chose for me to paint for him this lovely model of Adrax Agatone. So congratulations again, buddy. Thank you for taking part in the competition, and I hope you enjoy. So let's grab our paints and paintbrushes and maybe some flamers as well, and let's dive straight into it. But of course, we cannot start without a selection of lovely paints, and it's quite a selection, but these are the ones that I've used in the video today, alongside which we will require a medium-sized brush, a finer detail brush, and a teeny weeny teeny tiny brush for those teeny tiny places. So our first step to painting Adrax is going to be priming the model. So first of all, I applied a black acrylic primer over the top, and then using the white, I did almost like a bit of a pre-highlighting, just kind of over the top. And this is known as zenithal highlighting. There's loads of videos on YouTube that go into better detail and also have done a better result than I have. I mean, granted, I don't have an airbrush yet, maybe? I don't know. So we got it primed. That's the main important part. So we are then going to apply some of this darker orc contrast flesh over the top, and we're going to look at the armor first. So I'm going to want to grab a sort of fine-ish detail brush, so medium size. I've thinned it down with a little bit of water, and we are just going to go and apply over the armor. So just as the green is drying, I'm just going to go over some of the dark areas using our lovely Black Legion contrast. The reason why that I'm using these contrasts a little bit more often is because that they not only provide a nice sort of finish, but they also just go on to the base colour of the paint really well, and it just makes painting just that little bit easier, that little bit quicker, so we can get our miniatures onto the tabletop and fight in the glorious name of the Emperor, or for the traitor Chaos Gods, or whatever sort of faction that you play as. That's the most important bit at the end of the day, is getting these miniatures painted to a really lovely level and get them on the table, or if you're more of a collector, then into your display cabinets to look at and marvel and be impressed at your achievements. So another thing I will say about contrast paints is that you probably shouldn't solely rely on just using contrast paints or speed paints or whichever sort of brand that you go for, but they definitely work the best in conjunction with all your other paints. So perhaps use these as more of a base colour, depending on what sort of undercoats that you give your miniatures, but they are great in terms of that you don't need as many coats with the regular layer or base colours. But again, you know, some of the results on the textured stuff, like on the cloak, that will dry fantastic, and that'd be great for dry brushing straight over the top. But for more flat panels, if you can kind of see there on the backpack, it can be a little bit messy. Just missed a bit there. So next up, we're going to go back to the green armour now that it's dry. So I'm going to grab some of this moot green as well as this Calaman green. So I'm going to do a bit of a mix of the two, and then we're just going to start to go over the bulk of the armour. Now the first layer has been applied, we will start to just add in more and more of our moot green into the mixture to get a brighter and brighter green. So the green armour is almost done. We're just going to take our fine detail brush and we're just going to highlight using pure moot green and then thinning our paints down with just a little bit of water just to help it flow, and then we get much better control that way as well. There are a couple of areas that I want to just go back over after doing this. So the contrast paint didn't do too well around the toe guards at the bottom there. So I'm going to go back and either apply some null oil or some of this lovely Beltan green. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add in a little bit of this Flash Gets Yellow in with our Moot Green, and then I'm just going to do a very fine extra highlight, but I'm going to be selective with it. So I'm going to be targeting like the corners of armor, so for instance kind of like these little corner bits here, just to add a little bit more sort of like light reflection off on the armor, and it just makes it stand out a little bit more as well. This is entirely optional. You don't have to do this, but I'm going to do it with this miniature. It just helps just to make the colors pop just that little bit more. Now we're just going to take a step away from the armor just for a moment. We're going to look at the cape. So we're going to start out with the underside. So I'm going to use some of the Storm Vermin fur, and then I'm going to mix it with a little bit of this stuff, Abaddon Black, just a tad, just to dull it down just a little bit more. I'm just going to dry brush on the underside. So that's the kind of the darker kind of grey areas finished with. What I did do is that with the armour, so with the backpack, it's difficult to tell in this light, but to make it stand out from the cape, in that I'm just not using the same grey, I use some of this Inky by Darkness, and this works really, really well with black armour. I don't know what it is, there's a really nice touch giving it that slight kind of blue hue to it, and again it just makes it just stand out a little bit more from the regular grey, and also stuff like silverware, which is coincidentally what we're going to move on to now. So we will push them to one side and get our Iron Warriors silver and give it a little shake. Made no difference. Right, which brush? This brush. Could do it with a chunkier brush, really. But anyway, let's start out with some of the smaller bits, and yeah, we're just going to look at all of the metalworks and give it a nice generous coat with this. And now I'm just going to give a very light highlight with some of this Runefang steel. I'm just using a dry brush. So now we're going to move over onto the gold, and there is going to be a lot of gold trim on this miniature. So we're going to start out with this lovely brass scorpion. So it's a nice darker gold, and I generally like to use this first when applying or sort of painting gold. Anything gold, I tend to go for this first. Then I will tend to give it a wash with something like Adrax Earthshade, and then go back over the top with a lighter gold, something like Retribution Armor, for instance. So just to make our gold really stand out, I'm just going to use some of this Retribution Armor, and then with a fine detail brush, I'm just going to go over and just sort of pick out where the light is going to be hitting parts of the gold, just to help add a little bit more depth to it, and just to make it just stand out that little bit further. So I know that the brazier at the top is painted in gold, but I want to do the flame work first before I attempt to paint that, because I don't want to ruin up my lovely gold paint. So we're going to look at the scales on his cloak, and I'm going to start out with a Screamer Pink. So the scales on the back looking at the reference pictures, it's not entirely red. There is some kind of purple hue to it as well, so I think that this will be a really good base colour to start out with. So you're going to want to grab quite a fine detail brush, and then we're just going to very loosely go over the scales on the back. And then what we'll do is that we will blend in more and more, probably like Mephiston red, or that sort of equivalent of a nice sort of vibranty red. And then we will sort of fine tune and pick out all the scale work that's going on. And then you could always as well highlight finely with a orange sort of colour, just to make it stand out and pop just that little bit more. The choice is up to you really of how far you want to take it. The cape is now completed, and what I did is that I used the same method for the scales as I have done for the handle for the hammer, and it's turned out really, really well. So we're going to now tackle the flames at the top. So I'm going to start out with grabbing a sort of medium fine brush, and then I'm going to get some yellow. Going to get a nice big chunk there. Going to fill it down with a little bit of water, and then thankfully, because it's already been based in a white, that's going to really help to make this yellow stand out. So we're just going to start out with plugging it in to the recesses. So if you're looking at sort of fire reference pictures and such for this, you'll often find that the hottest part of the fire is in the center. So normally when you're using washes, obviously you want the recesses to be darker, whereas this time with fire, we want the complete opposite. So we want the recesses to be lighter, and this can be achieved by simply thinning down your paints first, starting out with your brightest colour, which typically will be yellow. If you wanted a more intense flame, then what you can do is that once you've put down your layer of yellow, I can't get my words out, and it's dried, you can then ink in, just kind of really water down to white, and then just kind of dab it into some of the deeper recesses in the centre, in the source of the fire. So we'll start out with this, and then what we'll do is that we will mix up some orange, and then we will start to slowly draw the colour down and blend it in before moving on to a nice red, and then we'll probably do the whole lot in the red, and then we'll probably dry brush, because that might be easier, a sort of light grey, then a dark grey, just to build that up, and then on the tips we can add that dark grey in, and then perhaps cap it off with a little bit of black, just to add a bit of contrast to it. So that's the flames just about finished. I'm just going to go over the brazier just with the golds that we've been using earlier, and then what we can do is that we can repeat this sort of process just without the black and the grey on the base as well, to act as the lava. So kind of watering down your yellows just as a like a wash on the inside there, and then building it up, and then just focusing on the very the kind of middle section there is your red, and then they've very cleverly molded in these little bubbles, and those you can go back over the top with just a little bit of yellow just to show off that detail. And then the rocks, we're just going to do a so much the same as the cape really, just that sort of dark, very dark grey, almost black on there as well. So I'll do the gold there, and then I'll do a couple of the little details as well, like the purity seal, some weathering on the gun as well on the base, and I think he is almost done. Oh, almost forgot the face, so we'll quickly do that now. So he's already had sort of base colour over the top, so that's a black colour, and a bit of a dry brush as well with some of the grey. So we're just going to pick out some of his features. So we're going to grab this storm vermin fur, and then just with a fine detail brush, just thin it down with a little water. I'm just going to pick out just a few little bits. So this is how it went about painting Adrax Agatone for the Salamanders Space Marine Chapter. Again, a massive congratulations to Dusty Miniatures over at Instagram for winning this part of my 7,000 follower giveaway, and I really hope that you have enjoyed especially watching this and seeing how it was created, and I will send it to you via the warp as soon as the ships are able to. So if you liked this video and you are perhaps maybe new, a subscribe would be massively appreciated, and a like, and leave me a comment down below which part was your favourite, which part you might have done differently. I like to read all your comments and suggestions and see if I can try and use those to improve my videos, and yeah, it does mean a lot to me. Any constructive criticism is always good. There will be stills and reels of this lovely chap over at my Instagram page at Lynch Paints. If you want to go and check me out over there and give me a follow, that would be also equally as appreciated. And if you wanted to pick up this lovely lad for yourself, then check out my affiliate link for Wayland Games. They're a UK-based retailer, and they stock all kinds of amazing tabletop games, card games, and all that lovely nerdy stuff. So yeah, check that out, and a little bit goes towards me to help fund more future projects in the future for you guys to enjoy watching along at home or on the bus, on the train, wherever you like to watch my videos. I don't really mind as long as you're watching them. So without further ado, before I leave as well, I do have a coffee page as well. There's a link to it down below. I haven't posted on there lately, but it's kind of fallen to one side a little bit, but if you do want to just support me that little bit further than you can do, the link is there. And yeah, you'd be absolute legend for doing so. So without further ado, stay safe, stay beautiful, and we'll see you next time.